I first got bit by the basketball bug a little over 10 years ago, I felt the need to pick a team. One that was good, but not too good. Fun, but not a frontrunner. Ideally, one without a particularly illustrious history. I didn't want to feel like I had missed the good times. I picked the Clippers. And after all these years, after they've invented new ways to fail, I still find myself pulling ever so slightly for their success. That part of me sucks, and so do the Clippers. Remember, the Buffalo Braves became the San Diego Clippers in 1978. After going 43-39 in that first season, they wouldn't have a winning record again until 1992. They would not win a playoff series until 2006. Wouldn't make a Western Conference Finals until 2021. They still have not been to the NBA Finals. This is the franchise that brought you Bill Walton's career in the early 80s, Elgin Baylor's tragic career as an executive, not one, but two blown 3-1 series leads in 5 years. The marquee couldn't get out of their own way team of the 2010s, taking Michael Olowokandi with the first pick in the 98 draft, ahead of Mike Bibby, Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, and Dirk Nowitzki, Doc Rivers' career as a GM, Austin Rivers' career as a Clipper, and oh yeah, the worst owner in modern American sports history. It isn't weird that the Clippers suck. They've always sucked, and they will always suck. This particular team is nothing special in the Clippers' history of staggering ineptitude, save perhaps for the fact that for this particular brand of disappointment, the Clippers have leveraged their entire future in acquiring Paul George, a supposed prerequisite to sway Kawhi Leonard into signing with the Clips 4 days later in 2019. The Clippers gave up 4 unprotected first-round draft picks, Miami's 2023 lottery-protected pick, and 2 future pick swaps. George is now a Philadelphia 76er, and the Clippers let him walk for nothing. As of this video, the Clippers do not control their own first-round pick until 2030. Ouch. But wait, in that trade, the Clippers also gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who at the time of the trade was a promising potential franchise cornerstone. How did he turn out, you might ask? Well, he led the Oklahoma City Thunder to the 1 seed in the Western Conference for the youngest team to ever secure a number 1 seed. He just finished as the runner-up in MVP voting and will turn 26 in July. That's how he turned out. Double ouch. Alright, so LA gave up their draft future for the rest of this decade and traded away the best young prospect in the league outside of Victor Wembanyama and Anthony Edwards. They ended up building a pseudo-contender with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. Let's take them one at a time. Kawhi Leonard, I don't know what to say about this guy. Does anybody? When he's healthy, he's phenomenal. If you could have talked to the ghost of James Naismith and he could have assured you with 100% certainty that Kawhi would have been 100% healthy for these playoffs, they would have been one of the favorites to win the title. If you know he's good to go, he is still one of the very best players in the NBA. And I can't knock the Clippers for trying to get him. If you have the chance to get Kawhi Leonard coming off his 2019 title, you have to do it. But it hasn't worked. He missed the 2021 Western Conference Finals, the only spurt of success this team has had, and has only played in 4 playoff games total over the past 2 years. Paul George? I like Paul George. Smooth guy, entertaining game, great personality. He was the Clippers' most dependable star by far for the past 5 years. But he was invisible in their Game 5 shellacking and stunk the place out in Game 6. He was about the only worthwhile star on the roster, and I would be much more forgiving had the Clippers not given up all that stuff I mentioned earlier for him. I know Kawhi was hurt and George had to step into the shoes of being a number 1 again in that Mavericks series. But is that too much to ask from a guy who made over $45 million last year? The Mavs started picking up Harden full court in Game 5. It became somewhat apparent early on that he was going to lay some eggs. You would have hoped that George might have seen this and resolved to pick up the slack. Nope. He shot 10 of 31 over the Clippers' last 2 games against the Mavericks. He and Harden combined to go 17 for 59 from the floor in those last 2 games. Like 2 babies puking on each other back and forth. And now he's a Philadelphia 76er, the Clippers of the East, a team that unapologetically trotted out some of the worst NBA rosters in history. year after year in pursuit of top talent and high draft picks. The process. Has it worked? Well, not exactly. And by not exactly, I mean no. They whiffed on nearly every top pick except for Embiid, lucked into Tyrese Maxey, and have still not made the Eastern Conference Finals since 2001. They've started acquiring the reputation of a team beset by injuries at the worst time who can't seem to pull themselves together to win when the lights are brightest. And their remedy for that is Paul George. Good luck. James Harden. I mean, what can you say? This was the quintessential James Harden experience. If blowing a playoff series were a 5-course meal, he would be Gordon Ramsay. He knows just what hors d'oeuvres to serve to get the audience's attention, contribute in the regular season, and start drumming up buzz about how much he's improved. Then the appetizer and salad comes, and it's exquisite and has you drooling for more. Contribute meaningfully in multiple playoff games. And when the main course hits the table, we are treated to nothing less than a work of art. No showing the biggest games of the season in the most maddening fashion possible. Not to mention a dessert that begs for a repeat visit. Pointing fingers, taking no accountability, souring relationships, and bouncing on to the next sucker that thinks they can fix him. Good thing the Clippers traded away nearly all their depth and another trove of draft picks to get him. In the same way that I will tell my kids about the thrill of watching Steph Curry, I will tell them about the surreal quality of watching James Harden collapse year after year after year. Russell Westbrook. God bless Russell Westbrook. He tries. He wants it. He dives for loose balls, runs the floor with purpose, and tries to crash the glass. The only problem is, he's just not that good at basketball anymore. Watching him sail lob passes, clang jumpers, and get stuffed at the rim was hard to watch. The Clippers constructed a team around one of the only players in the NBA who can say that they were the best player on multiple championship teams. Great! Except that player is also the most unavailable superstar in need-to-win circumstances since, wait for it, Bill Walton. And the team they constructed around him to fill in for him when he is inevitably sidelined in the biggest games are all playoff underachievers whose notoriety in that category range from notable to serial. In the process, they gave up every meaningful future asset that they possessed until the beginning of the next decade. Can you call that anything other than short-sighted ineptitude? They almost blew a 31-point lead in Game 4. It would have been classic Clippers, but to hang on and win on the road in front of a frenzied Dallas crowd, it required a pretty impressive amount of mental toughness and poise, the kind a team would need to make a deep run in the playoffs. With Game 5 at home, it was hard to not think about the possibility of knocking off a contender or two and validating this whole experiment. Instead, the Clippers lost Game 5 at home by 30 points, the worst playoff loss in franchise history. The role players did their jobs. Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and Zubac all showed up. They were trying. They thought there was a chance. And it was the same story in Game 6. Don't let the final score fool you. That game was over halfway through the third quarter. And again, everybody showed up except the guys who get paid the most money and get the most fame. The Clippers can spend the rest of this summer going through the same song and dance they do after every one of these disappointing playoff exits. They're gonna retool and come back more determined and whatever. The experiment has failed. The Clippers went championship or bust and ended up at bust.